Hello everyone, hello once again. My name is Kafaya. I'm a community learning specialist at DoSpace and I will be facilitating the DoSpace after school coded session for today. I hope you're all doing okay and I hope everyone is as excited as I am to join this session for today. So just a quick recap of what we've been up to for the past 4 weeks, 3 weeks. We're working with Scratch, and Scratch, as we all know, or for anyone that's just joining us today, Scratch is a block-based visual programming language and website that is targeted primarily at children to help them learn how to code. Children or users of this site can create online projects or games using the block-like interface. And the fun thing about Scratch that I always like to say is that you get to build your games and save them to your account, and you're able to share them with your friends and family, and you guys are able to collaborate and build off of each other's games. So just a quick recap to give you an overview for those of us that are just joining today. To give you an overview of the last 3 games that we have built, 3 sessions ago, so 3 weeks ago, we built the ball bounce game, which essentially involves a ball bouncing unpredictably around the screen, and every time you click on the ball, you get a score. And we were also able to learn how to switch backdrops and give us a celebratory screen. So what we did was to create a high score of 10, and once you click on the ball as many as 10 times, you become a winner, and then you get the celebratory screen. Moving on to 2 weeks ago, we went a step further from clicking on the ball, falling from bouncing around the screen, to catching the apple from the tree. So how this game worked was we had our ball fall from different areas of the top of the tree to the bottom, and every time you catch the apple in your bowl, you get a score. And another fun thing about the catch the apple game was that instead of using our arrows, or instead of the tediousness of trying to control your bowl, all we did was to program our bowl to work with our mouse or trackpad. So every time you just moved your mouse, your bowl would move the same way. So taking us to last week, in our last session, we practiced using the line tool in Scratch, and we built our maze using the line tool. This time we didn't select any of the Scratch pre-made backdrops. We created our own outline, and in this part I encouraged everyone to exercise and practice, or just be creative and build a maze of your choice. And this was what I had. And what we did was to make sure that the ball couldn't go over the lines. So, and once you get to the blue box, which was the finish, and in the maze, we would make the blue box disappear. So yeah, that was fun. It was like going through an actual maze, but instead of you being the one walking through the maze, it was the ball. Yeah, exciting. So let's go on to today. So what we have planned for today kind of rides off the back of all the games that we've built so far, and this would be the last game in our Scratch group that we have done for the past 4 weeks. So for this game, which is the brick break game. It is built using blocks that we've already used in like the previous games, like the ball, as you can see. And we would be using more sprites. So instead of having just 1 or 2 sprites for this game, we are going all out today. And in addition, we would be using a different if and then loop block which we would apply a bit of math to help us calculate the direction of the main sprite, which is the ball. And the ball would go around, and every time the ball touches the brick, it disappears. That's fun, right? So the point of this game is to keep the ball from falling to the sideline, right? That's exciting. So let's get started. I hope that everyone is ready and excited to join me as we build this exciting game for today. Okay, so the first step, as you all know, is to log on to your Scratch account and go click on create at the top. So we're going to scratch.mit.edu. If you already have an account, make sure you're signed in to that account, and then we're going to go ahead and start with our game. And to do that is to click on the create icon right next to the Scratch logo at the top of the page, and then we can get started. So I'll give us a few seconds, like 2 minutes, to get our websites open. So everyone go to scratch.mit.edu and we can go from there. So I'm going to go ahead and go onto the scratch.mit.edu website, and after clicking on create, it should bring you to a blank page like this with our lovely friend Scratch the cat. And the first thing to do, just to help you keep tabs and keep proper records of your games, is to give it a name. So we're going to go ahead and name our game. At the top right there, for those of us that are new to this, you right below the search bar, you would see the Scratch icon, and all you have to do is go right next to tutorials. You should see something that says untitled. And right there, we're going to take that out and name our game Brick Break. And once you're done, you can just click away from that and it automatically saves. So just a quick recap of all the steps that we've done so far. We have logged on to our individual Scratch profiles, and we went ahead to click on create, which is a very important step before starting a new game. And from that, we have gone on to naming our game just for reference purposes, so you can always come back to it. Or if you wanted to share it with your friends, you know the exact game among the collection of amazing games that I'm sure you guys have been building, you're able to do that with your game. So go ahead and name your game Brick Break, and we can go from there. And of course, like we always do, we're going to say bye-bye to our lovely friend, the sprite cat, the cat sprite, and because we won't be needing him for this game. So the first thing to do, something that's very important for us to do with this game is to select all the sprites and our backdrops. That's like the easiest part, right? That's where you let your creativity shine. This is where you select the backdrop, which would set the mood for your game, and also each and every sprite that you intend to use for this game. This is where we are going to select them. So I want you all to go into your sprite library and select our first sprite, which is a sprite that we're very familiar with. And for this one, I'm going to select the ball right there. And up next, we're going to select a paddle. So there's two options. You can either scroll down until you find the paddle, or you can search right here for a paddle. Right here. So now I have my ball and I have my paddle. And if you go back to your ball, remember how we had to reduce the size of our sprite our ball for the last game, the maze game, we're doing the same thing. So we're going to reduce our ball down to half its size. Make sure you're clicked on the ball sprite and then go up here where the size is 100, and I'm going to take that down and make it half its size, and half of 100 is 50, so that way our ball is smaller, which is perfect for the game. And then now we've got our paddle, and the intention with this is we're going to program it to move according to our arrows. So our left and right arrow is what we're going to use for the paddle. And if you remember from our last game, we had our ball move with the arrows. So it's the same concept for this paddle. So up next, we're going to go select our bricks, which are basically buttons. And for that, I'm going to go back into my sprites gallery, and I would select 5 buttons. This shouldn't be too hard to find. Right here where it says button 3, that's the button of my choice right here. And yeah, so select the button, and now we're going to go back and select 4 more because we need about 5. So I'm going to do that again. 2, 3, 4, and 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Awesome. So now we have 1 ball, 1 paddle, and 5 buttons. Okay. And what we're going to go ahead to do is place all of our buttons right next to each other at the top of the screen. Awesome. So the last thing that we need with selecting our ball in the sprite is to select a backdrop. And for this, I'm going to encourage you guys to exercise your creativity, and you get to choose what exactly you want your backdrop for this game to be. So of course, you know how we do that. You go in here for the little icon that looks like a picture, and if you click on that, it should take you here to our backdrop library, and you can just have fun, pick and choose which backdrop you want to use for your game. I want to use the neon tunnel, so I'm going to select my neon tunnel, and right here it looks all set, right? So this is what your game should look like so far. You have your paddle, you have your ball, you have your backdrop set, and then we have 5 buttons that are going to serve as our brick at the top of the page. Let me show you mine. Make it big screen. So this is what you have so far. And of course, you shouldn't do anything yet because we haven't given it instructions on how to behave. So far, all we have done is to select our tools that we need to make our game successful. So I'll give you guys a minute to catch up to this point before we get to the more interesting part, because this part was interesting too, but we're gonna go ahead to do the more serious and more interesting part of our game, which is, can anyone tell me what they think it is? Yeah, it's the programming part. Cool. Before we do that, I want us to go back into our backdrop. Oops. And right here, I'm going to give it a red line. So I would select my line tool. Maybe not. I'm going to give a red line right here, and right now it's purple, but I'm going to make it, I'm going to make it red. Why is this happening? I'm gonna do that again. I just need a red box at the bottom of my screen right here. Okay. I'm going to change my color to red. Awesome. So now we're all set. Does anyone have any questions about how I got my red line? I just used the box tool right here, and I clicked at the edge and dragged it from one edge to the other, and that way it gave the illusion of a bar. It created a bar for me. So that's what I did right there. And I also changed the fill color to red because red is the color that I want. And now I'm going to go back here into my code, and let's decide on what we should code first. I think the paddle is the easiest, so let's go ahead and get that out of the way. So don't forget to select your paddle if you're going to put code on it, just so you don't put the code for something on something else. So just like we did last time, we're going to go into our controls tab, into our events tab first, and we get the block of code that says when the left arrow key is pressed, and we're going to repeat the same step, but this time is our right arrow. So when the right arrow is pressed, we want it to move left would be -10. So we're going into our motions tab, and we're going to use this block, but change it to -10. So when the left arrow key is pressed, we want our paddle to move to the left, and when the right arrow key is pressed, we want our paddle to move to the right. So let's test that out now. I'm clicking on my left arrow, and now I'm clicking on my right arrow. Awesome. See? And it moves as fast as you let it, and that is awesome. So that part of our code works excellently. If you guys are working along with me, make sure you test your code as you go along so you can catch any errors quickly before we go too far in. Okay. So since the point of our brick game is to make the buttons, the bricks at the top of the screen, we want them to disappear every time that the ball touches it, we can go ahead and code that too. So let's click on the first button, which is button 3. And of course, to start the game, we're going to go into the events tab and get our block for when the green flag is clicked. We want it to show, first of all. We want to be able to see it. And we're going to need our forever loop for this because we want it to be a repetitive process that happens over and over again. So when the green flag is clicked, we want all our bricks to be visible. And then the condition that we want to give it forever is that if our button is touching the ball, I'm just moving through this because this is what we did in our previous sessions, but I'm going into the sensing tab to get the block that would help us fulfill this condition. So if touching ball, what do we want to happen? We want it to hide. So we're going to go look for the just like we had it show at the beginning when the green flag is clicked. We want the same thing we want the opposite to happen when the ball touches the brick. So I'm going to use the hide block right here, and it's as simple as that. So when the green flag is clicked, if the ball touches, oops, okay, I can't do that yet. When the green flag is clicked, if we want our buttons to always show, and if the ball touches the button, we want it to disappear. That's how we create the illusion of the ball disappearing every time, of the paddle disappearing every time it is hit by the ball, right? Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and copy the same code for every block. So let me see right here. Oops. No. Okay. I know that there's a shortcut on how to do this, but I do not, oopsie, but I do not, okay. So we have that copied for button 3 and button 2. I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing. So all I'm doing is dragging the entire block of code, and I'm going to click on, give me a second, excuse me. Awesome. I just needed to go get my light back on. Okay, so what I did was to drag the entire block of code, and if I click and drag it to the exact sprite I'm trying to replicate the code for, and it will just paste it there. So instead of doing everything from scratch, you can just copy and paste. That's how we do copy and paste in Scratch. So now I have my code for button 3, button 2, button 4 needs help. So I'm gonna go ahead, oops. I'm gonna go ahead and click, drag, and place it in button 4. So now we can see button 3, button 2, button 4, button 5, and button, okay. So now the only friend that needs the code is button 6. So I'm going to click, drag, and place it. And that everything is copied. So let's go over every button and be sure that they have our desired code. So button 3 is all good. Button 2, same thing. Button 4 has the code. Button 5, same thing. And button 6, awesome. So now we have our paddle coded, we have our buttons coded. I'm going to give you 2 seconds or like a minute so everyone can do the same thing. And if you prefer to use the manual method of clicking on of doing it from scratch, because this is basically 1, 2, 3, 4, like 5 or 6 blocks, and you think you can be fast enough, for sure I encourage you to do that. That's good practice for you to drag in place. But yeah, I'll give us a few seconds so everyone can catch up, or a minute so everyone can catch up and we can get to our ball, which is the most interesting part. So now that we have all the code for every other sprite, we need to figure out how to code our ball. This is a little bit more complex than the kind of code that we did for the ball or for the paddle or for the buttons, but we're going to take it one step at a time. Okay, so what we want to do is to move our ball towards the paddle And when this, we want to make sure that whenever we click on the space bar or the space key, we want the ball to start moving somewhere above the paddle. We also want the ball to bounce off from right to left of the wall or just the edge of our screen. That sounds a little complicated, but we'll take it at one step at a time. So I'm going to go into my ball and go into my events tab, and when the space bar is pressed, when the space is pressed, I want my ball to go to opposite ends. So what I'm going to do right now is go into my motions tab and look for the block that gives my ball the X and my Y axis. So I'm going to go to X at, let's see, I'll put my X, 16 is too small, or too big. So I'm going to go to negative 24 and 65. Right? And I'm going to also point it towards my paddle. So we want our ball to bounce off the paddle and then bounce off of the edge of the ball. So I'm going to go back into my controls tab and get my good friend, the forever loop. And we're going to tell our ball to continuously move. And so we'll tell our ball to move 10 steps. And also, if on edge, we want our ball to bounce off the edge just like it bounces off the paddles. Okay. Is everyone up to this point? Great. So if you're testing your code so far, you would see that the bricks are disappearing, right? Now let's think of what else we need to do here. You know how the paddle is there just for the purpose of protecting and saving the ball? We want the ball to bounce off the paddle and bounce off the wall. And for that, we would need our if and else block, but we don't want our ball to touch the red line, right? So if the ball touches the paddle, then it immediately starts heading upwards towards the bricks, right? But when it comes to the direction for the sprites, everything to the right is positive and everything to the left is negative. This sounds like a lot of words, so I'm just going to go ahead and show you guys what I mean. So all the code that we have so far, it works. So now what I'm going to do is go into my controls tab and grab my if and else block. So if my ball is touching the paddle, then I want it to go back up towards the sprites, the brick sprites. And if my ball is not, we'll figure that out as we go along. So let's do the first step first. So if, where is it? If else, it goes into my forever loop, just right below if on edge, we want the ball to bounce. So now I'm going to go back into my sensing tab. So if touching paddle this time, then I want it to point in the direction, give me a second. And so we set our direction at the top of the screen, right here. So I'm going to go ahead and go into my operators tab, and I'm going to borrow this block right here. And now I'm going to go back to my motions tab and use my direction. Oops, sorry about that. I'll just do this right here. Okay. Direction divided by 3. Awesome. The only thing that's missing right now is what would happen if our ball does not touch the paddle. Then that's why the green line is there. So let's try to read our blocks from the ball sprite like a story, right? First things first, when the space key is pressed on our keyboard, the ball would move, bounce off the edges, and if it touches the paddle, its new direction would change by slicing the current direction that the ball just fell through by 3. This is a lot of math, but bear with me. And it will continue to move 10 steps. So basically, every time that the ball touches the paddle, it bounces off in a different direction, right? So now the only question that you would be asking is like, what happens when it touches the red line? And that's basically game over, right? So that's what we're going to use our else part of this block for. So else, if it touches the red line, that is, if it falls not on the paddle, we want it to stop completely. So we're going to need our else block to have its own if block. So we're giving our else a condition. So I'm going to go into my events tab, to my controls tab, and drag my if block. So, and now I'm going to tell it that if my ball is touching the color of the red bar at the bottom, I want it to stop. And to do that, I'm going to go back into my sensing tab. So if touching color right here, and to get this exact color of the red bar, I'm going to use my color picking tool. So right here at the bottom, that's where the color picker is. I would click and go to the exact shade of red on my display screen. And once it's picked the color red that I want, I would click on that, and that my color is set. So if my ball is touching color red, like if it's not touching my paddle, I want the game to stop, right? So if touching color red, I'm going to go back into my control tab and ask it to stop this script right here. So I'll give everyone, that was a lot. I'm going to leave my code up on the screen so you can be sure that yours matches mine. And yeah, and so that you can try it out. So let's make this centered so everyone can see. So this is basically telling the story of what our ball is going to do. So when I press my space bar, my ball is going to just bounce off of my paddle and just go around the screen, pointing towards the paddle. So the paddle would be like the home for the ball. So every time you bounce off, you come back home. So if I press my space key, my ball bounces off, and then in my forever loop, I want my ball to keep moving, and anytime my ball touches the edge of the screen, it would keep bouncing. So if my ball in any way touches the paddle again, I want it to point in the direction, in the same direction but a different angle. That's why it's divided by 3. So there's 3 options on how the ball would bounce. And the last condition is that if my ball touches anything that's not the paddle, if it touches the red bar, that's the end of the game. right? So let's go ahead and test our game right now. Let me make this full screen. I'm going to click on my green flag and press my spacebar. And as you can see, every time it touches any of the buttons, the bricks disappear. But if it touches my paddle, it'll bounce back. And when it doesn't touch my paddle, the game stops because it touched the red bar. Let me make it full screen so that you can see. Or do you need a second so that you can finish with the code? Let me make it full screen so you can see what I'm talking about. So, space bar bounces off. As you can see, I'm moving my paddle with my arrows. Yeah, so let's try that again. I just decided not to move the paddle so that you can test out when the game stops right here. So I'm going to click on my green flag again and press my space bar. And as you can see, it bounces. Let me test it again. And press your space bar to start. Oops, I failed. But yeah, that's how the game works. I'll let you just have fun with it and have my code on the side to compare with yours in case if yours isn't working how you planned for it to. As you can see, it bounces off the edge, it bounces off the paddle, and it also makes the bricks disappears every time that it touches it. And that's the game for today. I want to give you guys a few challenges, just a few more things to practice regarding this game for your own convenience. So the first challenge is the same. It's the same thing that we've done for the previous two games, which is every time that the ball touches the red line, I want you to show me a different backdrop that says you lost, right? It's the same idea with the celebratory screen that we had for the ball bounce game and for the catch the apple game, but this time we wanted to say you lost when the ball touches the red line. I look forward to seeing how you guys get on with that challenge, right? So that is all that I have for you today. I'm going to hang around for a few more seconds. If you have any questions regarding this game, I'll be more than happy to help you with it. So, but if after this session you have any questions regarding today's activity or today's game or any of the previous Scratch games that we've built so far in the last 4 weeks, feel free to send us an email at hello@dospace.com. You can add my name. My name is Kafaya, and I would be more than happy to help you figure out what your question is. Or if you wanted to show me your game that you successfully built, please feel free to send it to the email at hello@dospace.org. I would be more than happy to see what you guys have. So I'm going to go back to sharing my screen with the code so that everyone can see what I have. I'm paying close attention to the chat if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about today's activity. Okay, it looks like we have no questions, so it was fun building the Brick Break game with you guys today, and I hope to see you next time. You have a good weekend and stay safe. Okay? Oh, have a good week and stay safe. Bye.